It is time to wake up. On this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media won't touch. Live from the Rocky Mountains. Welcome to Redacted with Natalie and Clayton Morris. Are you ready? Let's get uncomfortable. Oh, it's time to get uncomfortable, but you got me today. No Natalie today. She has the day off. So, hey, welcome in everyone to Redacted on this Tuesday. Great to see everybody. And we have a lot of news to get to because things are moving quickly in the Middle East. There are protests in Tel Aviv, although nowhere near as big as they were before October 7th, but there's still a lot of protests. And the IDF has been activated, ready to basically handle a war on multiple fronts: Iran, Lebanon. And Mossad has come forward and admitted, yes, they have been inside of Iran agitating with these protests. So all eyes on what sort of false flags will lead us into war with Iran very, very soon. And how much longer can the Netanyahu government survive? We're going to unpack all of that, given these new revelations about October 7th that we just learned. We're going to talk about that. And that's, by the way, coming from the Israeli press. It's not coming from American press. We're going to talk about that. We've got a couple of different angles on that. Plus, we're going to look more deeply at Iran with CIA whistleblower John Kiriakou, who's going to be joining us to dive deeply into that. Plus, the CIA is essentially running Venezuela, and the Department of Justice this morning, just dropped like a key portion of their entire argument for going after Nicolas Maduro, saying that the Cartel de los Sols he was apparently running, well, they now admit that, well, it's not really a group at all, and looks like he had nothing really to do with it at all. But it doesn't matter because we already got him in the United States, so now we can move forward with the trial. Like, that was the entire reason for going in to get him. Never mind that the CIA set the whole cartel up in the first place. Man, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. They think you're stupid. They really think you're stupid. So we'll talk about that. Plus, a new vaccine schedule under RFK Jr., the CDC. This is really a historic move by the CDC to reduce significantly the amount of vaccines being given to children, from COVID shots to flu shots to Hep A to Hep B. We're going to dive deeply into what this means and how many more are still available for children and why they potentially should be removed from the market as well. So we'll talk about all of that. So thank you guys for joining us here on the show on this Tuesday. We've got a lot of news to get to, and I really want to thank you all for subscribing and being a part of our great community here. It's free to subscribe on Rumble, on YouTube, on X. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you guys had a wonderful new year. If you didn't get to watch us yesterday, we're back. So thank you guys so much. So I want to tell you about our friends before we get into all of the news, our friends over at Bearskin. Because you know I'm a huge fan of the Bearskin hoodie, and smart people are grabbing theirs right now because when it's already freezing here in the Rocky Mountains, we're about to get a whole bunch of snow at the end of the week. It's about damn time. It's been one of the warmest winters we've had, but now we're about to get 12 degrees, lots of snow, and I absolutely love my Bearskin hoodie. I wear it every day when I'm walking the dog, just doing yard work, being outside. I got one for my neighbors as well. I just got one. They had buy two get one free, and I got 3 of them and the raincoat, and they are the best made hoodie I have ever used. Honestly. That's David talking. I mean, they are fantastic. And my neighbor, I got one for him as well. And he has a nice little fire pit outside, and he's like, I wear this thing all the time. It is really one of the best hoodies you can buy. These hoodies are built for serious cold weather. It's got 340 GSM of bearskin fleece, 10 pockets, a muscular fit, even zips into that heavy storm rain jacket that David was just talking about. So you get into full winter waterproof armor. Whether you're into hiking, hunting, traveling, or just you hate being cold, this is the last hoodie that you'll ever need. And you'll get free U.S. shipping, fast delivery, and you're finally, kitted out properly for winter. That's a win-win. So do yourself a favor right now. You get 60% off the Bearskin hoodie today by going to Redacted, by texting the word Redacted. Just text that word Redacted to 36912. That's 36912. You'll get a link sent straight to your phone. You can check it out if you're busy right now. By the way, when you're shopping with Bearskin, you're not just getting killer gear, you're also supporting the Fallen Outdoors and the Hope for the Warriors Veterans Program. So don't wait till you're freezing to realize that your hoodie sucks. Get a Bearskin now while it's 60% off. Text the word Redacted to 36912. 36912. Text that word redacted. All right. Let's get into the news. Everyone here? John's here. Good. Let's get into it. Well, is Netanyahu's government in serious trouble? Well, if you watch social media, and this is why we don't have an axe to grind on this show, we try to present you with the facts. We don't come with an agenda. We're not paid by anybody. So we're not going to give you like fake facts or fake information. So if you want to understand if Netanyahu's government is in serious trouble, if you are on social media and you're following sort of any anti-Israel X accounts, they might be sharing protests in downtown Tel Aviv of thousands of people gathered protesting against Netanyahu. They'll share videos like this showing about 3,000 protesters. It's been happening pretty much like every Saturday. Yes, these are massive protests. 3,000 people in a small country is a pretty big deal, right? I mean, if this happened like in Portugal in downtown Lisbon, it'd be a pretty damn big deal. And it's happening in the center of Israel against the corrupt Netanyahu government. And I don't hold back at all. I believe that Netanyahu is a demon, and I think he's wildly corrupt. And I've known people that worked for him that left his administration that told me how corrupt he was. So that's how I feel. These people, though, are demanding an independent state commission of inquiry into the events of October 7th, 2023. But it's the nuance that gets lost when people share these types of videos, because before October 7th, these protests were not 3,000 people. They were 250,000 people calling for Netanyahu to be investigated for corruption, judicial overreach, all of it. I had friends in Tel Aviv saying they don't think that Netanyahu's going to survive. He can't survive this. Guess what? Then, of course, October 7th happens. But right now, he's trying to build a coalition inside the government. He's got about support of about 65 members. He needs, out of 120. That's a coalition. So he's already got the support. So it doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Once again, he'll be the leader. Maybe he'll be the leader of Israel through like 2030. That's what it seems like right now. So those are the facts. Might be inconvenient for some. It doesn't really matter, but these are the facts. So if you're like truly like anti-Israel, then there you go. And if you love Israel, well, there you go. I don't care either way. Right now, a new report, though, out today shows that Israel asked Qatar to increase funds transferred to Hamas in Gaza a month before October 7th. So they asked Qatar, the country they bombed and we are supposed to hate, of course. Israel asked Qatar to increase money transferred to Hamas just a month before October 7th, because all of the money that goes to Hamas that comes from Israel, of course, remember, Israel funds Hamas, funnels through Qatar and then to Hamas. And they're like, we don't know anything about it. Okay, sure. According to the Tel Aviv newspaper Yedioth Ahronoth, the Israeli government asked Qatar to increase the amount of funds it transfers to Hamas in Gaza less than a month before the October 7th attack. Netanyahu officials, according to the report, knew the money would, quote, enable Qatar to divert other Hamas funds to arms and military preparedness, and that Hamas was exploiting Qatar's assistance to civilians to reinforce its military capabilities. Oh. So put another way, Netanyahu knew the money would fund terrorism, but its leaders wanted it funneled to Hamas anyway. That's almost like the CIA funneling drugs into Venezuela, right?
Well, and also absolutely nothing makes its way into Gaza without Israel knowing about it. Nothing.
Exactly. And the most heavily monitored border in the world, but okay. It's almost like they knew an attack like the one on October 7th would be great for Benjamin Netanyahu with those 250,000 protesters on the streets of Israel. John Kiriakou is a CIA whistleblower. By the way, John exposed the famous Bush torture program during the Bush presidency, revealing that the president of the United States himself had signed off on that torture program personally. Bush DOJ investigated it, said he did nothing wrong as a whistleblower. All good, dropped the case. Obama comes in, appoints John Brennan, says go after that guy. John Brennan, the CIA, goes after the guy. Charges him with espionage. Tries to ruin his life. But John doesn't back down, and he knows what it's like to be in the dark belly of the beast and knows what the dark deeds of these men like Netanyahu are up to. John, great to see you. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Great to see you, too. And, I'm so glad that you started things off with these stories and these videos. I want to add something. My very first overseas tour with the CIA was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And at the end of that tour, one of the State Department officers suggested to our ambassador at the time, Chaz Freeman, who went on to be a legendary figure in American foreign policy, suggested that we go to the Israelis and we say, we'll talk to the Saudis about building a port, an airport, a water desalination plant, and an electrical grid in Gaza. What do you think? So that way you guys don't have to worry about Gaza. They can be economically self-sufficient. The Saudis will pay for everything. It'll be tens of billions of dollars, but it'll give Gaza an infrastructure. The Israelis said, and this was in 1991, the Israelis said, absolutely not. Because the Israelis wanted there to be only 5 hours a day of clean water, only 4 hours a day of electricity. They want the Palestinians to have to worry about whether or not they're going to starve to death, or whether or not the machine that's keeping their premature babies alive is going to be shut off because the power goes out. They want the Palestinians to live that way. That's why Gaza looks today the way it looks.
And as David pointed out, I mean, nothing flows into Gaza without Israel knowing everything about it.
Nothing.
Money,
nothing.
Weapons, all of it. So when people seem to have like a short-term memory loss when Netanyahu famously on camera talked about funding Hamas, like how deep is that integration with the Israelis and the CIA basically propping up, arming and funding Hamas?
I don't recall there being much, if any at all, connection between the CIA and Hamas. That was an Israeli thing. It was the Israelis' bailiwick. But the Israelis were working hand in glove with Hamas. Hand in glove. Remember, Hamas was created because of the Israelis back in whatever it was, 1988 or 85 or whatever it was. And even after all these years, in the most recent election in Gaza, Hamas only got the support of 8% of Gaza Palestinians. So the Israelis don't get any sympathy from me on this issue.
When you look at Netanyahu, you look at these latest revelations on October 7th. I want to unpack that, because when you say that there was stand down orders, I was speaking to an Israeli today in Tel Aviv, and he was pretty furious, and he said, look, and I think he'd been a long time like Netanyahu supporter. He said, there's a lot that's about to come out in the next few weeks to a few months. And the military apparatus, the Netanyahu government, and what they allowed to unfold on that day. And specifically, we were talking about these young women, these young IDF soldiers, like fresh out of college, who were basically put in these outposts as cannon fodder to be killed. I mean, they knew what was coming. They knew, the Israeli government knew these young women, these young IDF soldiers in a lot of these outposts were about to be killed. So maybe we can unpack the stand down orders and what you know and what we can talk more deeply about. And then I want to talk about this latest report today on the money funneling through Qatar.
Yeah. Well, let's not forget to, I'm so glad that you brought up these demonstrations in Israel. People have forgotten that as recently as a month, 5 weeks before the October 7th attacks, there were gigantic swaths of Israeli society in the streets, to the point where the demonstrations in Tel Aviv were so huge, more than 250,000 people, that the government had to actually shut the airport, if you can imagine. Now, these were Israelis calling for Benjamin Netanyahu to resign. Remember, and many Americans have forgotten, remember that Netanyahu has multiple felony charges hanging over him. He's indicted on multiple felony charges related to corruption. Mrs. Netanyahu has been indicted on multiple felony charges related to corruption. So Benjamin Netanyahu is not terribly popular in Israel. He hasn't been terribly popular for a very long time. And if you look at Israeli elections, going back to the first time when Netanyahu was elected prime minister, he has never, ever received more than 27% of the vote. Because Israel has so many different political parties, he has to patch together a coalition of smaller parties to become prime minister. But he's not popular. He's never been popular, and he's corrupt. So what is the best way to get Israeli voters to focus on something other than the corruption of Benjamin Netanyahu? It's a war, because everybody can rally around the flag when it comes to war, and then lo and behold, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, when all else fails, you go to war, right, to distract.
That's right.
So now you see this report from Israeli press today, and of course, the Israelis are trying to deny it. Okay, is there any truth to the Israeli government in this report? Israel asked Qatar to increase funds transferred to Hamas in Gaza a month before October 7th, that it was made by Netanyahu government officials, including Netanyahu himself, knowing that this money would go to, quote unquote, fund terrorism before October 7th.
This has been out there for many, many years, and it only stands to reason. As you correctly noted at the beginning of this segment, nothing in Gaza happens without the Israelis knowing about it and approving of it. Nothing happens. This is the most fortified border in the world, maybe with the exception of North Korea and South Korea. But the Israelis don't allow anything in or out. Well, Hamas is funded somehow. You have to keep people placated somehow. And that somehow is the Israeli government transferring funds to the Qatari government, and then the Qatari government transferring the funds to Hamas. It's been like that for years. But the thing is, it's at the same time, the Israelis trying to keep the Palestinians down by not giving them quite enough food, quite enough water, quite enough medication or electricity. And then it backfired after a while.
When you look at the stand down order specifically, what do we know? I mean, obviously, we have this from IDF soldiers themselves.
Correct.
Right? And when you talk to Israelis, and I have, in fact, this morning, as I mentioned, in Tel Aviv, and quite furious about this. And it seems like they're growing more furious, as they may or may not be Netanyahu supporters. It doesn't really matter. But knowing that their government allowed these people to be hung out to dry on purpose, and they lied about it, and they've been obfuscating and trying to hide this investigation from happening. Can you maybe unpack that a little bit more? Like, what do you expect? What do you expect we might learn?
Well, as background, the Israeli government right now is the most extreme right-wing government in the history of Israel. 2 of the sitting cabinet ministers have convictions, felony convictions, for anti-Arab hate crimes. One of them is in charge of security in the West Bank. He's also the Minister of Finance. The other is the Minister for National Security. So these are 2 men who have dedicated their lives to, well, essentially to destroying Palestinians, whether Palestinian lives or villages or homes or communities or whatever, including Christian Palestinians, by the way. The situation has continued to get worse because Benjamin Netanyahu was weakened by these felony charges. And so what he did is, rather than to shore up his support on the left, which no longer exists, he's worked to shore up his support on the right. And you do that by giving positions of authority to right-wing extremists. And, I hate to even call them right-wing because, we're right-wing in many ways. And these people are just extremists. Let's do that. We'll call them just extremists. Well, like I said, what better way to unify your population than around a war? Now, a lot of people thought that the next war was going to take place in the West Bank, not in Gaza, because Gaza had been so crushed that there wasn't enough space to fight. There wasn't a way to get weapons in easily. There's not enough food. There's not enough water. Better to fight in the West Bank. But it wasn't in the West Bank. It was in Gaza. And so I think the idea was you get to completely destroy Gaza. You get to ethnically cleanse it by forcing out the people that you don't kill, because after all, the policy can't be to just kill everybody, as much as some Israeli politicians might like to do that. And then you just take the place over and resettle it. But that's not a long-term viable policy. Look at the pictures that you're showing right now. That can't be the policy. And so we've gotten to the point where Benjamin Netanyahu is fresh out of ideas. Now people are taking to the streets again. They're protesting his corruption again. They're asking for an early election. They're asking for a change in government. And I think it's only going to start to get worse. I'll add one other thing. I have a dear friend who is a war correspondent. He goes from war zone to war zone to war zone. He went into Gaza with the IDF on October the 8th, the day after the Hamas attack. And he told me quite pointedly that one of the things that he saw immediately was a long line of cars from the concert site all the way to the border with Gaza. And they had holes in the roofs of the cars that were created by rockets. And there were dead bodies in every single one of the cars. And he said that he mentioned to the IDF escort that he had, wait a minute, these cars have Israeli license plates. They're obviously Israelis inside, and they're all dead. The Palestinians don't have the ability to, they don't have helicopter gunships to shoot rockets through the roofs of cars and kill people inside. And he was very pointedly told that that's not the story. The story is that Hamas attacked Israel. And he was not allowed to take pictures of those cars, and he was not allowed to write about them while he was in Israel.
Wow.
But he said it's the Israelis killing their own people, which we later learned was, the Samson whatever.
The Hannibal Directive.
That's the Hannibal Directive. Thank you for correcting me. The Hannibal Directive. They didn't want to talk about that on October the 8th. And then all of a sudden, there's what appears to be a policy to just kill women, children, the elderly, the sick, and those that you don't kill, get them to emigrate and go somewhere else.
Well, and then actually they buried the cars afterwards, too.
And they buried the cars.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, and then there's also this move by Trump to try to, to pardon Netanyahu, get him pardoned in his own country. So to avoid.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because that's in the news again today. Netanyahu is calling for this, I guess we could call it a truth commission to investigate October 7th. But Israeli law is very clear about how you form one of those commissions. The commission members are to be appointed by the president of the Israeli Supreme Court. But it's the president of the Israeli Supreme Court that was insisting that the charges for corruption be brought against Netanyahu. And so Netanyahu is proposing today an extrajudicial method by which the members of the commission are appointed. And guess what? His proposal is that he appoints 3 of the members, and then the opposition in the Knesset appoints the other 3 members, with the Supreme Court president not appointing any members. And that way they can whitewash the mistakes that Netanyahu made, or whitewash the policies that the Likud bloc came up with that led to October 7th in the first place.
John, we're going to take a break in a second, but do you think we're going to see a good investigation of October 7th? We've already heard from testimony of IDF soldiers talking about the stand down order. What you just talked about.
Not a chance. Not a chance. The Israelis are in survival mode. They'll always remain in survival mode. Benjamin Netanyahu will not go to prison. He will not be convicted of any crime. Itamar Ben-Gvir and Ismail Smotrich and all these other monsters from the Israeli government are going to get off scot-free. The fix is in. This is the way they do business.
Stay right there, John. I want to talk to you about Iran. The IDF preparing to attack on multiple fronts or deal with a war on multiple fronts, including Lebanon, the West Bank, and Iran. Mossad admitting that, yes, they are inside of Iran, agitating with these protesters. I want to talk about all of that. We're just going to take a quick break here and tell you about our show sponsors today. You don't have to overhaul your whole 2026 to start eating better. Sometimes it's just a simple swapping out of some snacks in your pantry. That's exactly why we love masa chips in our house. They're made with 3 ingredients: organic, corn, sea salt, and grass-fed beef tallow. 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's it. No seed oils, no mystery chemicals, no garbage your body doesn't recognize, just real food. And here's the thing. These aren't like healthy, boring chips. They actually taste incredible. We had a little bit of a New Year's Eve party around here and a bunch of teenagers hanging out. We had a whole bunch of masa chips and they devoured them. They're really great. It won't make you feel bloated, sluggish, or gross like you do with all those regular chips because masa is real food. One of my favorites. I love these. I love the Colbanero chips. I also love the lime ones. The lime ones are really, really good. That's one of our fan favorite. And tonight, by the way, we're doing tacos tonight. So I want to have some of these out for taco night as well for the kids. So if you're ready to give it a try, go to masachips.com/redacted news. Use the code redacted news for 25% off your first order, or simply click the link in the video description or scan that QR code right on your screen. By the way, if you don't feel like ordering online, you can just go down to the Sprouts supermarket. If you've got a Sprouts nearby you, you can do that. Stop by and pick up a couple of bags before they are gone. And we want to tell you about our friends at Stash. That's right. Right now, if you don't need to overhaul your life to start investing, just automate it with our friends at Stash. Your new year money goals can quietly run in the background while you focus on everything else. And it's so great because it's so easy to just onboard and get up and running with Stash very, very easily with helpful information that you can use right away. It's fantastic. Investing shouldn't feel like a gamble. With Stash's smart portfolio, your money's guided by experts, giving you peace of mind while it grows. Stash isn't just another investing app. It's a registered investment advisor that combines automated investing with expert personalized guidance, so you don't have to worry about gambling or figuring it out on your own. So don't let your money sit around. Put it to work with Stash. Go to get.stash.com/redacted. See it again on the screen right there. It's get.stash.com/redacted. See how you can receive $25 towards your first stock purchase and to view important disclosures. That's get.stash.com/redacted. And paid non-client endorsement, not representative of all clients and not a guarantee. Investment advisory services offered by Stash Investments LLC is an SEC registered investment advisor. Investing involves risks. An offer is subject to terms and conditions. That's your little disclaimer there. All right. Well, are we seeing CIA and Mossad-backed protests in Iran? Well, Mossad just admitted it. They openly admitted that they are inserting and agitating anti-government protesters inside of Iran. And now Israel has ordered the IDF to prepare for a potential war on all fronts, including Iran, Lebanon, and the West Bank. Reports suggest that Israel is planning a dramatic military expansion, including space-based weapons, possible strikes on Tehran, and you have Mossad, backing these demonstrations. President Trump is also warning of military intervention. And by the way, all of this seems to happen like on a Saturday, right? Like Friday night into a Saturday morning, so the markets aren't affected by it all, right? That's how it usually happens because Trump likes to start these wars on a Saturday morning. So how close are we to real war with Iran? Let's bring in CIA whistleblower John Kiriakou, who's been following this very, very closely. And he knows a thing or two about false flag events, things that could bring or rally the American people into wanting to go to war with Iran on behalf of Israel. And there seems to be a lot of rumblings lately, John, about more false flags potentially incoming. But it seems like we're pretty aware of that stuff now, aren't we? Or do they still work?
They do still work. We should be very aware of it. We've learned a lot about the Israelis and Israeli actions in Iran just over the past year or so. We've learned, for example, that the Israelis were very successful in recruiting Afghan refugees to report back to them, for example, on the movements or locations of of Iranian nuclear scientists or military leaders. For example, the Iranian government doesn't have very much money, especially not money to spend on illegal immigrants and refugees coming from Afghanistan. And so these Afghan refugees are approached by people who appear to be Iranians saying, hey, we'll give you $200 a month, $500 a month, whatever it happens to be. You tell us where the general's apartment is located. You tell us where this nuclear scientist happens to live. And the Afghan refugees successfully did that. A whole bunch of them have been expelled from Iran since. Many of them have been executed after admitting that they took money from the Israelis. But that's how the Israelis were able to gather this intelligence necessary to attack the Iranian leadership. With that as background, the Israelis also have had a very long-term relationship with the MEK, the Mujahideen-e-Khalq. Now, the MEK is ostensibly a communist group. It's more of a cult, frankly, than anything else. And for many years, for decades, it was on the State Department's list of international terrorist groups. They actually tried to assassinate the highest-ranking American general in the Shah's Iran, for example, in the 1970s. They tried to murder the U.S. ambassador to Iran in the 1970s. And then, like magic, one day they became the good guys. And now they're represented in Washington, D.C. by the likes of Rudy Giuliani, who was the keynote speaker at one of their most recent dinner events here in Washington. So the MEK, whether it's a cult or a communist or not, has the support of the United States. And it has the very strong support, especially the financial support of the Israeli Mossad. And by all accounts, it's the MEK that is instigating these anti-regime demonstrations that we're seeing in the Western media now across Iran. I have a very close friend who goes to Iran frequently, a couple of times a year. And she tells me that the Iranian people just want to be left alone, right? They don't want to fight the Israelis. They don't want to invade anybody's country. They just want to be left alone so they can make a living and feed their families. And that's not good enough for the Israelis.
Imagine that. Sounds like we have a lot in common. Like here in the United States, that's how most of us feel. We don't want to
really what people don't want that, like in any country.
Well, I don't know. It seems like the Israelis want it, and it seems like the Israelis are going to get what they want. And it seems like the Trump administration and the CIA, let's talk about that. I mean, it seems like we're gearing up for this once again. It seems like we are getting ready to launch some sort of a large-scale attack. What would the CIA be doing as sort of like groundwork ahead of this before us?
That's an important question. That's an important question. The CIA would be doing a lot of groundwork, mostly surrounding the recruitment of new sources. Listen, saying it in the clearest, simplest way possible, the job of the CIA is to recruit spies to steal secrets. That's it. That's the bottom line. Recruit spies to steal secrets. Now, you want those spies to be well placed so that the secrets are high-level secrets that can give you a leg up. But I'll tell you something that an old-timer at the CIA told me early on. Two things. Number one, if you really want to know if the United States is going to invade a country or attack a country, watch naval movements. If we send carrier battle groups to a location, we mean business. And then a couple of years later, he said something else to me. He said, you have to understand that no American politician would send 100,000, 200,000 troops halfway around the world if he didn't mean to launch an attack. Now, that was true. The former was true a couple of days ago in Venezuela. I said 3 weeks ago on my own podcast that we had sent the USS Gerald Ford off the coast of Venezuela. As soon as the Pentagon announced that the Gerald Ford was going to Venezuela, I said, we're going to attack Maduro. And I'm sorry to say that we did. Well, now, if we start diverting carrier battle groups to the Eastern Mediterranean, the Arabian Sea, or the Persian Gulf, be prepared for hostilities.
I want to bring in, because we're lucky enough to have him here. He's here early because he was going to be joining us to talk about Venezuela, but he knows a hell of a lot about Iran. and he's also a CIA whistleblower. Kevin Shipp, author of Twilight of the Shadow Government, an excellent book, which I just finished reading during the holidays, and holy smokes, my jaw was like this every 10 minutes, like holy smokes, I had to keep picking my jaw up off the floor. I love having you guys on because you guys get to expose this demonic organization at the CIA. And I love it because these people need exposure. These people need to be brought out into the daylight. So, Kevin, I'd love to have you jump in on Iran and what you're seeing and, kind of play off of what John was just talking about there, which is carrier battle groups, naval movements, and false flags. What do you think we're about to see with Iran?
Yeah. Hi, Clayton. Thanks for having me. And shout out. Hey, John, how are you,
Hey,
man?
Kev. Good to see you, buddy.
Well, yeah, I think just like as John was saying, by the activity of the U.S. military, what we're seeing unfold with Israel, they're going to stage another attack. I think that's pretty clear. It's not a matter of whether they're going to do it. It's a matter of when. And as John said, you can just watch the movements of the military and the carrier ships and other things, and you can see what's about to happen. And not only that, I mean, Trump has basically come out in the open and indicated that he's going to hit them again if they don't play ball, which of course they won't. So that's very concerning. I think they're going to hit Iran again. Right now, they're embroiled in Venezuela, which I'm pretty concerned about. But Israel, sadly, is influencing our government to a very strong degree, which, of course, many of us are concerned about.
So how do you think this strike will go down, Kevin? And I'll start with Kevin and then go to John. How do you think that this strike will go down? What will be the U.S. involvement in its attack on Iran?
Well, if you go back to Libya, I think, and Libya, of course, was connected kind of like Venezuela. Libya was about to go to its own version of currency. And what they went for the head of the snake. I think probably the spark that will light it is if the Iranian regime they just killed a young woman, I understand. If they kill more protesters, Trump's even said that's it. That's the battery knocked off the shoulder. They're probably going to go in if you use the Libya example and try to take out the top of the snake. If the protests are strong enough and if the people are courageous enough to come out in mass, then there's a chance that the U.S. and or Israel will launch an attack on the Iranian regime, probably from the air.
John, what do you think?
I agree completely with Kevin. And, there are some other indications that something's afoot, too. In the Washington Post this morning, the Washington Post, which has become the rag of the 1%, it's owned by Jeff Bezos, they ran an article, they ran an op-ed this morning written by an utterly discredited and minor fringe character, the son of the Shah of Iran, who has proclaimed himself to be the new Shah of Iran. And he said in this piece that what we need in Iran is democracy. Like the Shah of Iran is going to give Iran democracy. The Shah was an absolute dictator who slaughtered his own people, and that's why there was a revolution that led to the Ayatollahs in the first place. But it's also well known that Shah Reza Pahlavi, the son of the last Shah, is financed by the Israelis. And so the Israelis wrote this op-ed, and the Israelis had it placed in the Washington Post, and we're all supposed to just nod dutifully. There was also a statement yesterday by Her Majesty Senator Lindsey Graham saying that Iran presents an existential threat to the United States. No, actually, it doesn't present an existential threat to the United States. The Israelis want us to believe that Iran is an existential threat to Israel, but that doesn't give Israel the right to just wantonly bomb the place. And I want to make one last point, if I may. Iran is a country of 92 million people. It is gigantic in terms of its land mass. You can't invade and occupy a country like that. We couldn't invade and occupy Afghanistan or Iraq or any number of other places, Libya, Somalia. We're not good at it. And so the only hope that the Israelis have, and by extension, Washington, is to cut the head off the government, as you said, to essentially murder the Ayatollah and to murder the president and the head of the military, the IRGC, the Quds Force, the intelligence service, et cetera, or allow them to escape to Moscow or wherever they would go, and just hope for the best. And that's not a strategy.
And Kevin, as you pointed out, John brought up the Jeff Bezos rag, as you write about in your book. I mean, think about it as the Washington Post as an extension of the CIA, basically.
Absolutely.
Like the printing press for the CIA, right, John? Right, Kevin? And then you're going to see the Mockingbird media, the likes of Sean Hannity wearing his CIA pin, as you pointed out.
Yep.
Which you can see the photos of him wearing his CIA pin on Fox News. And he was championing, of course, the greatest attack on Iran. It was amazing. And he was championing President Trump's attack on Iran when that all happened. So the Mockingbird media is going to fall right in line with this.
Oh, you can count on it, especially the Washington Post. It's been a mockingbird for the CIA going way back to Philip and Catherine Graham. It's the chief mockingbird. Of course, in my book, I delineate how the CIA tried to manipulate my story when I came out and contacted the Post. And they immediately contacted the CIA, reported it, and then tried to extract classified information out of me so they can try to entrap me there. So, there's no doubt about it. The Post is the chief mockingbird. So you can just... and so the CIA today, in terms of Mockingbird, does a quid pro quo with, especially the Washington Post and at times the New York Times. Listen, if you play ball with us and don't criticize what we're doing, we'll feed you intelligence information and you'll be the first to get it. But the moment that you criticize the CIA or publish any sort of journalistic investigation, we're going to cut that spigot off and we're going to start working against you. So there's no question the Post has been doing that. They've been doing it for decades and they're still doing it.
I want to see if, John, can you stick around for a moment? And I'd love to talk with you about Venezuela as well. Are you game for that for a few minutes, like 5 minutes?
Happy to.
Okay. Well, let me just turn to that story. So something interesting just happened at the Trump DOJ. Remember that whole story they spun to us last month about how there's this drug trafficking cartel in Venezuela called Cartel de la Sol, and Maduro is the head of it, of course. Here's an NBC report from early December, just to refresh your memory. Watch.
The U.S. escalating pressure against Venezuela by designating a cartel group allegedly tied to President Nicolas Maduro as a foreign terrorist organization. But here's the thing. It's not really a cartel, at least not technically speaking. So this group we're talking about, Cartel de los Soles, is widely considered a loosely organized network of drug traffickers. The U.S. claims the group is headed by Maduro, but the administration has not provided specific evidence to back that claim up.
Huh. Well, remember that? Well, about 8 hours ago, the DOJ suddenly dropped that claim that it's even an actual group at all and that Maduro had anything to do with it. Justice Department drops claim that Venezuela's Cartel de las Soles is an actual group. So what the hell happened here? Well, Bebo summed it up nicely on Twitter for all of us. U.S. pulled a dirty trick to be able to grab Maduro without getting Congress involved. I'd guess it's Rubio's plan. That's how this worked. Well, number one, USA invents a new bad cartel, Cartel de las Soles. Number two, U.S. declares Maduro as head of that group. Number three, U.S. designates Cartel de las Soles as a terrorist organization. Number four, Maduro is now a terrorist with a $50 million bounty on his head. Number five, the military can act against terrorists without congressional approval. And number six, Maduro gets grabbed by the military quickly. And number seven, for the actual trial, the U.S. then suddenly drops the whole Cartel de las Soles Act and admits it doesn't even exist. This allowed them to get Maduro without asking Congress for any kind of approval. Kevin Shipp spent 17 years at the CIA, and then he discovered how dirty the CIA really was. He blew the whistle, and they went out to try to destroy his life and actually to kill his family. John Kiriakou also had his life largely ruined by the CIA after he blew the whistle on that demonic organization. So we have two whistleblowers from the CIA to talk about the CIA operation in Venezuela. Kevin, first to you, and I know you're concerned about Venezuela. Now the CIA has been operating there for decades. They're basically controlling the entire show, are they not?
They are. And the what you just showed us, talking about Cartel de los Soles, or the Cartel of the Sun, was run by General Ramon Guillen, who was the anti-drug chief for the Venezuela National Guard. And Guillen was a CIA asset. And the CIA had funded and trained Guyon's internal secret police force. And it was General Ramon Guyon who was running Cartel de los Soles, the drug running sub kind of government group, was run by the general who was working for the CIA while the CIA looked the other way while that was going on because Guyon was such a big fish. So the CIA is using the pretext of this Cartel de los Soles or Soles to go in, when in reality the CIA was involved in the general who ran that cartel in the beginning, and they're digging up this old cartel as a pretext, a CIA pretext, to go in and stage this invasion and kidnapping in Venezuela. So this is not about drugs. This is not about narco-terrorism or any of that. This is a CIA pretext for this invasion. By calling it narco-terrorism or terrorism, that gives them the reason to go, or the reason based on the war on drugs and the war on terror, to go past Congress and engage in this coup/invasion. And it's interesting, even though it was so secret they couldn't tell Congress, Trump called some of the major oil companies and told them he was going in before Congress even knew about it. So this is not because of drugs at all. The majority of drugs, fentanyl and cocaine, come from Mexico. Fentanyl doesn't come from Venezuela at all. As a matter of fact, drugs coming out of Venezuela, or really coming through Venezuela, go to the Caribbean, they go to Central America, they go to West Africa and Europe, not the United States. And it's interesting, too, and I think you guys, I'm sure, are aware of this. Trump just pardoned the former president of Honduras, if you remember him, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted of trafficking drugs to the U.S., 400 tons of cocaine into the United States, and he was given 45 years in prison. Well, Trump just pardoned him. So if this is about war on drugs, that's kind of a reverse direction on that one. This is the same narrative the CIA used to shield CIA-backed drug operations, and it's being revived. We know that the CIA has penetrated the DEA going way back. And I remember the current administration, I think it was Bondi, said, well, we had a DEA agent in there as part of this raid kidnapping to make it a law enforcement operation, which is just absolute baloney. The DEA is heavily penetrated by the CIA. I did an interview with Hector Boreles, who witnessed the CIA blocking the arrest of drug kingpins so they could use them for assets. So this is about the petrodollar, in my opinion, because Venezuela is leaving or has left the petrodollar. And if you remember, Trump had a meeting with Congress, a closed-door meeting about this, and I think Marjorie Taylor Greene and some others were there. Trump, this is a quote he made, "We are going to be taking a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground in Venezuela." Rubio called it an oil quarantine. So the narco trafficking terrorism thing, of course, they just dropped it because it's a lie. It was plausible deniability again. It was a CIA pretext to go in and kidnap the leader of a nation that was leading the petrodollar and starting to do business with China and Russia, especially.
John, Kevin's right. I mean, look at this New York Times from 1993, where the CIA, according to the New York Times, anti-drug unit of the CIA sent tons of cocaine to the United States in 1990, right, in Caracas. So all of this, thousands of pounds of cocaine going into Venezuela from the CIA, as Kevin points out in his book. The CIA is arguably one of the largest drug dealers in the world. I mean, it's how they're funded largely, right? I mean, yes. So is there anything you disagree with what Kevin just said?
No, Kevin, again, is 100% correct. And I'll add something. We've all seen the Netflix series Narcos, right? Great series. But every season, there's a scene, invariably, where the DEA is just about ready to swoop in and grab their target, Pablo Escobar, the gentleman of Cali. They're going to get ready to swoop in, and just at the last second, the CIA station chief steps in and screws the entire thing up. And so we never grabbed Pablo Escobar and brought him to New York to face trial. We never were able to grab the gentleman of Cali until years later. Why? Because in real life, the CIA does screw up the DEA's drug arrests, because the CIA doesn't care about drugs. The CIA, if anything, has abetted the importation of drugs, just like that article from 1990 in the New York Times shows. You know, cocaine didn't arrive in Los Angeles in 1982 by accident. having come through Nicaragua and through the hands of the Contra rebels who were on the payroll of the CIA. The CIA was involved in bringing cocaine to Los Angeles. It's a historical fact. It's been proven to be true. So listen, every time I hear that this is all about keeping drugs about the United States, I have to shake my head.
I'll throw this out to both of you guys because the opposition leader was funded by the Endowment for Democracy, which is another name for CIA, right? So,
right.
So
that's correct.
So now, who's in charge down there? What sort of a puppet government are we setting up? Is it similar to Ukraine, Kevin? And I'll start with you.
Well, yeah, the CIA has recommended to Trump, I understand, to keep the vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, I believe is her name, to keep her in place and not install a new leader instead of her. And the reason that he's doing that is because she still controls the military and the police in Venezuela, and she's not real happy about what just happened, despite the source that they had within the Venezuelan government, who probably got the $50 million bounty. Anyway, she controls the military and the police, and for the CIA to remove her and place someone else in there could really cause a military a military mess in Venezuela and attract boots on the ground from the United States. So the CIA has recommended that Trump keep the vice president in charge of Indonesia as long as she plays ball and goes by the petrodollar system and starts selling oil back to the United States in U.S. dollars. Then the U.S. will go back in and help them rebuild their infrastructure, oil infrastructure, which the U.S. blocked, which is one of the reasons Venezuela is in such a catastrophe economically. So that's the way it's playing out now. She'll be the vice president as long as the Trump administration thinks that she's going to play ball and keep the petrodollar going. The petrodollar is linked directly to the U.S. dollar, and the BRICS nations and others are abandoning the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. If the petrodollar is abandoned and the yuan or something else takes its place, it will cause a severe financial crisis in the United States because the U.S. dollar value is tied to the petrodollar. That's what this is all about. It's all about, you say, well, it's all about oil, and then there's some media puppets that have come out, and I think the CIA is using some AI bots on social media, which they do. They're coming out and mocking people who say, well, this is just about oil. It's all about oil. Well, fact of the matter is, it is all about oil. It's not about drugs at all. I think we've just proven that. There's no question about that. This is about the petrodollar and maintaining the U.S.'s foothold and control over Venezuela, its government and economy, and its continued involvement in the petrodollar. If the Trump administration is threatened in any way with Venezuela continuing to sell oil to China or Russia, then we'll see the vice president taken out of her position fast.
John, Kevin just brought up something really important, which is the CIA's bot program here. Now, over the past 48 hours, we've been covering here on the show all of these like fake videos that are being shared by like MAGA influencer types, and they're all parroting and sharing all of these fake videos from 3 years ago that show soccer celebrations and other things like that. How involved would the CIA be in what Kevin just talked about, this bot program and pushing out these sort of false narratives from these like MAGA influencers?
Right, there are entire units at the CIA that do this as their 40-hour-a-week jobs. Yeah, they would. This would be a very sophisticated program taking place at the CIA, and not just at the CIA. I mean, you can farm it out too. I wouldn't be surprised if there were other countries involved, countries allied with the United States. But yeah, another thing too. Getting back to or bringing it back to the Israel issue is you just take people whose ideas you don't like, whose opinions you don't like, and you label them as anti-Semites. It's the same thing. You have bots that do it. You have people with ostensible academic credentials doing it. Now they've got this list, anti-Semite of the year. Tucker Carlson's the anti-Semite of the year.
Right.
It's the same idea. You just have an army of bots and programmers. And I mean, you can essentially bombard somebody with so many bots that you put them out of business on social media platforms.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we see it definitely in the chat rooms. Anytime we have like mention Israel in the title of our live stream, will get hit with these bots. There, and I've been told, by the way, from intelligence sources that that's exactly what happens. And so I'm not surprised by this at all. John, I'll give you the final word on that side on the who's going to be running the show down there in Venezuela.
Well, just a couple of days ago, the president really disparaged the vice president of Venezuela, Dulce Rodriguez, and then within 48 hours said, no, we can work with her. We can work with her. And I'm wondering if the CIA went and paid her a visit and said, look, this can be hideous or it can be easy, and it's totally up to you. You do what we tell you to do, and you can live, and you can continue to be the acting president of Venezuela. If not, well, then we're going to find somebody else. And I think they probably got to her.
Kevin, do you agree?
I agree 100%. Yes.
Wow. You guys have seen some dark shit. I'm just going to put it it's like, man, thank you guys though for, your honesty and your transparency and your willingness to call out the darkness that sits at the heart of these intelligence agencies and really trying to destroy the United States of America. Thank you for your patriotism and shining a light on it. Thank you both. Kevin Shipp. Book is Twilight of the Shadow Government. It's a great book. And John, also, I know you have a relatively new book as well. I'd love to plug it in addition to your podcast people need to listen to.
Thank you. I decided to write a non-CIA book, my first. It's my 8th book, my first one that's not about the CIA. And it's called Remains of the Day, A Definitive Guide to Washington, D.C.'s Historic Cemeteries.
Interesting. I like that. I love trying to take a shower of getting off the dirt from you if you can a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's right.
John and Kevin, great to see both of you. Thanks for hanging out together. I wasn't planning on this, but hey, I was great to be able to chat with both of you.
Great to see my friend Kevin.
It's a real treat to be on with John. Yeah, maybe a first time for both of us. Yeah. Thank you, Clayton.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Great to talk with both of you. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, John.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
2 American patriots right there. So, boy, I mean, when you hear their stories separately, totally separate, and how the CIA, once they called them out, tried to ruin their lives, destroy their lives. Kevin's story, just finished that, just reading that over the Christmas break, and holy smokes, just devastating. But thank you for those guys, true patriots.
Yeah, which, by the way, if anybody that didn't catch it, you did a long form interview over the break with Kevin, so they should go check that out.
Yeah, please do. It's a great, and it's a deep dive about his experience, his book, and what he uncovered at the CIA. I highly recommend checking it out. Twilight of the Shadow Government, but check out the full interview that we have here on the channel. So please check that out. All right. Hey, Mary Holland is going to be joining us very, very shortly. We're going to be talking with her about she's the CEO, of course, of the Children's Health Defense. And this is huge because we just got some huge news from the CDC and the childhood vaccine schedule now being shrunk thanks to RFK Jr. and his new rules at the CDC. Boy, people are pissed. And I love it. I'm there for it. Can't wait to talk with Mary about that in a second. But first, it's a new year. You got new devices. Whether you're upgrading your tech or you're sticking with what you've got, now's the perfect time to protect your digital life. That's why we recommend WebRoot Total Protection. It's an all-in-one cybersecurity solution for individuals and families covering multiple devices and identities under one simple plan. You get real-time antivirus protection, a firewall and network monitor web threat shield to help block malicious websites before you visit them, plus a password manager and a system optimizer. WebRoot also includes identity theft protection, dark web monitoring, credit and financial alerts, and identity health updates, and even a VPN for multiple devices. WebRoot has been trusted for over 25 years. It's lightning fast, lightweight, doesn't slow your system down, and doesn't bombard you with annoying pop-ups. So it's a new year. Check them out right now. Get 60% off with WebRoot's trusted cybersecurity solutions this new year. Choose the protection that's right for you. Visit webroot.com/redacted to get 60% off. That's webroot.com/redacted for 60% off. Well, we are witnessing the largest rollback in childhood vaccines in history thanks to RFK Jr. and the new rules coming out of the CDC today. It's already sending shockwaves across Washington. I love watching like a lot of liberals like really melt down over this, that think that we should be injecting our kids with all sorts of untested, horrible things in our bodies. Like, just shove them. Go out and get as many COVID vaccines as you can. The CDC has quietly shrunk the routine childhood vaccine schedule by more than half. They took it down from 84 to 88 doses down to around 30. If I understand it correctly, we'll get some clarification on all of those numbers in a second. Several vaccines that were once recommended for all children are no longer considered routine, including COVID shots, thank God, annual flu vaccines, Hep A and B, rotavirus, meningococcal vaccines. Instead, many of these have now been shifted into weird categories like, well, not weird, but different, called the shared clinical decision-making, or limited to high-risk populations. So I guess you consult with a doctor. They then said, maybe you should go and get one. Some vaccines remain on the schedule, though, like MMR, DTaP, polio, and chickenpox. Why polio? I'm really curious about the polio one, but we'll talk about that. But even here, we're seeing changes, including a reduction of the HPV vaccine, thank goodness, from 2 doses down to 1. Whether you see this as long overdue or maybe stunning reversal, one thing is clear. This is the largest rollback of routine child vaccinations in U.S. history, and it raises, some serious questions, actually, about like what were parents told for decades? Were they lied to the whole time? To help us unpack what this actually means and why this is happening now, what families should understand, we're joined by Mary Holland. Mary is the CEO of Children's Health Defense, the author of Vaccine Epidemic: How Corporate Greed, Biased Science, and Coercive Government Threaten Our Human Rights, Our Health, and Our Children. Mary, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So if these vaccines were truly settled science, as we were all told, then why is the CDC suddenly walking back more than half of these routine childhood schedule vaccines? What changed? Was it the data or was it the politics?
Well, December 5th, the president put out a memorandum saying, CDC, you have to look at what other peer countries are doing, and you have to see whether we really have sort of the gold standards science behind our program. And so an assessment was done, and they came back and they said, we looked at 20 other countries, and no other country in the world had as many doses of as many vaccines with as poor health outcomes as we did. And so they looked at what other advanced countries, Denmark, Germany, France, other major countries, what they were doing. And to a significant extent, they aligned what we're doing now with other countries. And they're relying more on every vaccine, Clayton, is still available. Anybody who wants to get any of the vaccines that have previously been recommended are still available, and they will still be covered by insurance. But now, instead of having all of these vaccines being pushed on almost all children by pediatricians, they really won't be pushing the same number of vaccines on kids. And for high-risk groups, or for the sort of more tangential vaccines that were basically only added in the last 15 years, it'll be shared decision-making. So it's going to be much easier for doctors to say, you don't need a hepatitis B shot, which children don't need. You don't need a hepatitis A shot. You don't need a meningococcal shot. Now, how is this going to affect the states is a key question. How is this going to affect liability in the event of vaccine injury is also an important question. You have to recognize that what happens is that the CDC recommends the vaccines, but the states mandate them. And what we're already seeing is this probably a huge division between the blue states and the red states. And the blue states are already saying, oh, we're not going to follow the CDC anymore. We're going to create our own schedule, and we're going to go with the old ACIP schedule. And that's going to raise a lot of really important new legal questions of, okay, well, if the CDC doesn't recommend it for routine administration, then query, and if it's not covered by the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, who's going to pay when a kid dies, or who's going to pay when a kid becomes blind or becomes unable to walk or develop some severe autoimmune condition, which all happen with vaccines. They're not all safe and effective. So this is a fabulous step. And one of the most important things, Clayton, is they're saying we still need to do the real science, because the real science has never been done. There's not a single vaccine on the childhood schedule that has ever been tested against a true inert placebo, which is a shocking revelation, but that's the truth. So this is a fantastic step. We're not there yet, but we're definitely on our way towards improving children's health by actually doing the science and pulling back on recommendations that genuinely have no science behind them.
I mean, we still haven't done the science. That's just like remarkable to me. So let's just inject our children here. Like, how damaging, you mentioned just some of the health side effects here. It's important for people when you're hearing like, you know, blue states, red states, and then like parents and, you know, maybe who are blue who live in a red state are like, oh, that's it. We're moving to Minnesota because I want my kid to have 80 shots. Screw President Trump. I'm doing it. I want my kid to be filled up with as much mercury and whatever else. I want my kid to be autistic. I want my kid to, you know, have brain damage. I mean, I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but it's just so crazy to me as a parent that you would just go along with this. We were told during COVID, listen to the CDC. Now they're saying, we're not going to listen to the CDC.
I think that COVID played an incredibly instrumental role here, because I think COVID and the shots that didn't work and the shots that were so injurious caused a great deal of skepticism. And so after that period through 2024, I think CDC is really empowered to say, you know what, we're going to be transparent with you. We're going to tell you we don't have gold standard science on any of the vaccines, but we definitely don't have it on these Hep A, Hep B, meningococcal, influenza, rotavirus, COVID that we've been telling you to take and give to your children. I don't think a lot of parents, blue state parents in red states, are going to move back to blue states to give their kids the vaccines. Every single vaccine, Clayton, is still available throughout the country. It is.
Yeah, it's a great point.
It might be a little harder to get, but it's still going to be covered by insurance. It's still going to be covered by Medicaid. It's going to be covered by the CHIP program. So I don't think that there's any cause for parents to leave red states. The bigger issue, as you probably know, is that parents in some states like New York, where I am, have no opt-out from vaccines. If they don't want to give them, you basically end up homeschooling. And that is a very important legal issue that we're deeply involved in at Children's Health Defense.
So is there concern inside the public health establishment, like long-term outcomes on this?
Listen, I mean, pharma and its proxies are up in arms, and they are already suing HHS, right? The American Academy of Pediatrics is already suing Kennedy and HHS for what they've already done. Surely they're going to add this into their woes. And, you know, doctors are skeptical. But the real science that has been done, Clayton, shows that unvaccinated children are healthier. Children with fully developed, intact immune systems can deal with something like chickenpox or measles. I'm old enough that, you know, those were routine illnesses, and there were not thousands of children dying from these things. That's a fabrication. That's a fraud. There were a couple hundred kids who are dying, and there are much better treatments now. And so I think we're going to come, I pray, we're going to come to a new equilibrium to understand the potential benefits, but also the real risks of vaccines. And those real risks have been so suppressed. They've basically sidelined any doctors who talked about them. They've made it impossible in the media that's pharma funded to talk about real hazards from vaccines. So we're at a new beginning, and it's exciting.
You mentioned children are better off and healthier without these vaccines. I mean, that should just reverberate.
That's what the science. Yeah. That's just what the science shows. You know, they haven't done the placebo-controlled trials, as HHS is saying. They haven't been looking at the long-term health outcomes. Who cares whether you get measles or not? What people really care about is, are you healthy when you're 15? Are you healthy when you're 30? Are you healthy when you're 55? That's what normal people care about. It's the objectives have been so reductionist, right? Oh, you know, how many cases of measles? How ridiculous is that as an overall metric for health? It doesn't matter.
Right. Can you get measles and just bounce back? Can you get chicken pox and just like I had chicken pox as a kid and who cared? I was, bounce back. Who cares?
Right.
Just like, look at the Amish children, the Amish community, right? I mean, nothing in there, right? And so one of the healthiest populations in the country, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So I guess what I'm asking.
No autism, Clayton. I just want to add a footnote of one of the early studies done by a very important journalist in the space. No cases of autism in, a huge Amish community.
That's a nice little footnote. Just like a little side footnote. I mean, because the cases of autism in the United States have absolutely exploded, and we don't know, can we pinpoint it directly on the massive increase in childhood vaccination schedules, up to 88 shots? Do we have the clear evidence yet? I mean, the White House obviously.
We have a lot of it. You know,
Yeah.
we have a lot of evidence. We don't have, you know, there's not one cause to autism. There's not one cause to other neurological injuries, but we definitely know that autism, which is now 1 in 31 children, has exploded during the time that this vaccine schedule has ramped up just incredibly. And I don't know if, you know, I don't want to go too deep, but in 1986, Congress passed the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, which basically gave blanket liability protection to the pharmaceutical industry and to the healthcare practitioners. So if kids die, if kids get injured, they don't have to deal with it. There's not going to be a malpractice suit. There's not going to, in real life, there's not going to be a failure to warn suit. There's not going to be a defective design suit. They just can add, and it's billions of dollars. Any vaccine that is basically foisted on a cohort of children, 4 million children, has billions of dollars right there. So the incentives have all been in one direction, which has been financial incentives. The incentives in the vaccine program has not been health of children.
No, they need to reverse that immediately. I don't know if there's any support, what sort of support we have in Congress to get rid of that 1986 law. What do you think?
Not enough, not a lot. But I think it's growing, Clayton. And there are some really fantastic members in the House and the Senate that, you know, that we think really highly of, who definitely get this issue.
So I guess, and I was bringing up the Amish piece of this and your point about the healthier, you know, the science showing that children without vaccines are healthier long term. So when these individuals then want to sue HHS and they want to sue Robert F. Kennedy Jr., you're going to have to, and this goes to trial, you're going to have to go through discovery. You're going to have to go, we're actually going to get to hear the science. So what leg from a legal perspective would they have to stand on if the science isn't on their side?
Well, the difficulty is that for 50 years, while all of this is ramped up, we've been relying on this authority, right? The people in the white coats, the white-coated priesthoods. And that's what has always been relied on in the disputes that we've had so far. Well, I'm following the CDC schedule. I'm following the American Academy of Pediatrics. I think we're about to see the truth come out, Clayton. I think that AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, may be surprised at what they wished for, because they are going to have to put forward the science, and they don't have the science. And that's why people like Dr. Paul Offit, the most prominent spokesperson for the vaccine schedule and for vaccines in the United States, they will never agree to debate anyone. Secretary Kennedy for 15 years has been saying, I will debate anybody. I'm a lawyer. I believe in debate. I believe in adverse positions and airing differences. No one will agree to debate him. I hope that while he's the secretary, some person is going to come and agree to debate him. But I'm not going to hold my breath. But I agree with you that these lawsuits now being brought by the American Academy of Pediatrics are going to show the truth, which is that the emperor has no clothes.
I would love to watch that debate. It'd be more entertaining than a Mike Tyson fight. Mary, I get you out of here on this. Epidemiologist and administrator at the McCullough Foundation, a friend of the show, Peter McCullough, one of his colleagues, Nicholas Hulscher, he posted this. He said, however, this decision does not fully end the problem, meaning this rollback. The vaccines that remain routine are still largely untested, are administered during critical periods of neurodevelopment in children, and increased risk of over 20 chronic diseases, including autism. Anything you disagree with there?
No, I don't disagree with the thing. And I have high regard for Nick and for Peter McCullough. And no, what is still on the schedule from our perspective should not be, our view at Children's Health Defense is there should be no medical mandates. It should be between you and your healthcare practitioner, and all medicine should be in the interest of the individual patient. It is not something, there's never going to be a drug, there's never going to be a vaccine that is equally effective and equally safe for all people. We've been living with this mythology that really is, it's time for it to end.
Can I ask you just a quick legal question? Like in the state of New York, like if I'm a parent,
yeah,
and I've got my kids, and I don't want them to get these mandated shots so that they can go to the elementary school that I pay property taxes for. Like, have any of these gone to trial at a level?
Clayton, we've been fighting in New York since before COVID, and we've certainly amped up the fight since COVID. In 2019, the religious exemption was revoked in New York State. Medical exemptions have become exceedingly difficult to get, and Children's Health Defense has been funding litigation in New York State to get real medical exemptions, get real religious exemptions since 2018. And I have to say, we've made a lot of progress, and I believe that we are on the cusp of some major legal changes that will enable people anywhere in the country to have real medical exemptions and real religious exemptions. But what Kennedy and HHS are doing here absolutely supports that. And it's the idea that the recommendation from the federal government is that these things require shared decision making. That's going to open up a lot more space for doctors of integrity and courage to say, no, this child should not get a second MMR dose because they had an adverse reaction to the first one. Right now, Clayton, we're dealing with a case right now. I mean, kids are being injured because of the cruel orthodoxy in New York, literally.
Just awful. Well, thank you for your hard work and being on the front lines for this. I don't think there's a more important story for children in the United States. So thank you for the work that you're doing, Mary, and the team over there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to be watching that, but that's a huge yes story. I am very excited about it. So while there's like lots to dislike right now going on with wars and everything else, what's happening over there with RFK Jr. at least is definitely a big bright spot. Definitely a big bright spot. Hey, here's another bright spot. Is your money actually working for you or just sitting there doing nothing? So interestingly, yesterday I was driving with my son who's 15 and I was taking him to swim practice and he said, Dad, because he knows I invest in real estate and he knows that my wife and I do and have a long history with it. And he said, and he really wants to start learning how to invest in real estate. We just made him read Rich Dad, Poor Dad over the Christmas break. So he's starting to think that way, right? He's starting to think that way. And he said, but I don't have, a huge amount of money for a down payment. He's only got a few $100 in savings or whatever. And, in his Roth IRA or his savings account. And I said, yes, you can invest in real estate. You can start with as little as $50, with as little as $500. And I told him about our friends at Connect Invest. We've been working with them for years. Natalie and I, my wife and I, both invest using this strategy because you can invest in a fund and grow your wealth together. You're investing in real estate short notes. So maybe you don't own the property outright by yourself individually, but you're investing with a group of investors to build new apartment complexes, other things, right? And that's how it works. So if you want to learn more about how, you can start with as little as $500 and earn up to 9% returns annually in your account and get a $50 bonus just for signing up. Just go to redacted.inc/invest today. You can join thousands of investors who are growing their wealth. There's finally a smart option. It's just one of thousands of everyday investors you're already using to grow their wealth without volatility, without complicated real estate deals, without needing a ton of money to start. It's simple. You can start with as little as $500. So my son is going to take some of his savings. He's going to put, I said, start with 1,000 or 500, whatever he's got in his account. I think he's got 800 or something in there from his lawn mowing money. And I said, let's put it to work. Start earning 9%. Don't be like those other people who just keep it in a savings account at the bank earning 0.01%. Make your money work for you. You got to learn young on how to build wealth because the government's not going to teach you. School is not going to teach you how to become financially literate. They don't want you to be financially literate. They want you to be financially stupid. They don't want you to know how it works, and they want you to be a worker bee for the rest of your life. They want you to rely on 401ks. 401ks. Even the founder of the 401k said it's a failure. It was never meant to stand on its own. It was meant to work in tandem with pension plans. So educate yourself, learn how to invest with as little as $500. You can start earning up to 9% returns annually. You can pick the length of the note, by the way, 12 months, 24 months, whatever you want. And get a $50 bonus right in your account. So go to redacted.inc/invest today to start growing your money. And my son's really taken to it lately because I've been teaching him how to invest in precious metals and in real estate. And so he's like, okay, do I need to diversify? He's thinking like he's got lots of money. He's got, it's just a little bit of money, but he's already thinking about how to diversify and be smart about it outside of how the government wants you to do and be like a worker bee. So it's been great to see his growth. And I'm teaching my 13-year-old, we're teaching our 13-year-old daughter the same thing now too. So we made her read Rich Dad, Poor Dad over the holiday break too. Robert Kiyosaki, very good friend. He's an incredible person and highly recommend. If you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the most important books you could probably read. I try to read it once a year. It's a great refresher. Anyway, those are my investing thoughts for the day. To educate yourself.
That's my problem. I read Poor Dad, Poor Dad. I think I need to.
Poor Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah, don't read that book. Don't read that book. And I highly recommend his other book, by the way, The Cash Flow Quadrant. Great understanding of how these things work. What's up, buddy? So that's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, being a part of the program. Thanks to our amazing guests today. We really appreciate everyone who was able to join us today. John Kiriakou, Kevin Shipp, and Mary Holland. Great discussions today. We'll be back at 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So thank you guys for joining us here on Redacted, and have a great night.